1954, a lonely road stretches under the California sun, heat waves shimmering off the pavement. A dust-covered Buick pulls into the parking lot of a small but bustling restaurant in San Bernardino. Inside the car, a man grips the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turn white. His name is Ray Kroc, a 52-year-old milkshake machine salesman. His cheap suit sticks to his back, damp from the heat and nerves. He glances at himself in the rearview mirror, adjusting his thinning hair. This isn't just another sales call. This is his last shot at redemption. His eyes move to the restaurant in front of him. McDonald's. The name means nothing yet, but the scene unfolding through the window does. The line of customers moves like clockwork: order, pay, collect. No chaos, no long waits, just precision. The golden fries sizzle behind the counter, and burgers slide into perfectly wrapped packages in mere seconds. He exhales slowly. If what he's about to do goes wrong, he'll be back in his Chicago office, drowning in unpaid bills and an inventory of unsold multi-mixer milkshake machines. He tightens his grip on his briefcase, wipes the sweat from his brow, and steps inside. Curiosity ignites a dream. Just a week earlier, Kroc had been in his small, dimly lit office when his secretary called out, someone from California wanted to order 8 multi-mixers. 8. He nearly laughed. No restaurant needed to make 40 milkshakes at once. This has to be a mistake, he muttered, leaning back in his chair. But something inside him nagged. What if it wasn't? A small burger joint ordering that many machines could only mean one thing: they were doing something no one else was. And if they had figured something out, he needed to know what it was. The next morning, he booked a flight to California. Inside McDonald's, a revolution in motion. The first thing that hits Kroc as he steps inside McDonald's is the sound, not of chaos, but of order. The steady rhythm of spatulas hitting grills, the clinking of the cash register, the satisfied hum of customers biting into their meals. He watches a young worker effortlessly slide a steaming burger wrapped in yellow paper down the counter. The customer snatches it up without hesitation. No waiting, no mistakes. Just speed. At the back, 2 men move swiftly, orchestrating the kitchen like a military operation. Kroc squints, 2 middle-aged men in white shirts and aprons, their brows furrowed with concentration. Richard and Maurice McDonald. A chalk-drawn blueprint is sketched on the tile floor. Workers step along it, moving with surgical precision as they prepare meals in seconds. Kroc watches in awe. This isn't just a restaurant, this is a system. The meeting that changed everything. Later that evening, the 3 men sit in a cramped back office. The Golden Arches logo is hand-sketched on a napkin beside them. Richard McDonald leans back in his chair, arms crossed. So, Ray, he says, skepticism lacing his voice. Did you fly all the way from Chicago just to sell us more milkshake machines? Kroc chuckles, setting his briefcase on the desk. Gentlemen, he says, leaning in, I came here because you're sitting on something bigger than you realize. Maurice chuckles. We hear that a lot. No, Kroc insists. You don't. He gestures toward the restaurant. What you've built. It's revolutionary. The speedy service system, the efficiency, the consistency. You're not just serving food, you're changing the way America eats. Richard exchanges a glance with his brother. They had heard praise before. But Kroc wasn't just impressed, he was hungry. You've tried franchising before, Kroc continues. But you didn't have the right partner. Richard sighs. We've been burned, Ray. Every franchise we opened failed. The quality dropped, and the brand suffered. Kroc leans in closer. I won't let that happen. Silence fills the small office. The only sound is the faint sizzle of burgers cooking in the distance. Finally, Maurice exhales. All right, Mr. Kroc. We'll hear you out. Kroc grins. A deal with the devil? Over the next few months, Kroc pitches their vision to investors and recruits franchisees. The Golden Arches begin to rise in Illinois, Arizona, and beyond. But there's a problem. Kroc is making pennies on the dollar. His deal with the McDonald brothers leaves him only a small cut of the profits, while they retain control of the name and operations. It isn't enough. He needs more. Then, he meets Harry Sonneborn. Sonneborn, a shrewd financial mind, listens to Kroc's problems over a glass of whiskey. Ray, he says, tapping his glass, you're thinking small. Kroc frowns. What do you mean? You're not in the burger business, Ray. Sonneborn leans forward. You're in the real estate business. Kroc blinks. Franchisees pay rent, Sonneborn explains. You buy the land, lease it to them, and collect from every single store. A slow grin spreads across Kroc's face. If he can't own McDonald's yet, he can own everything it sits on. The power shift. By 1961, McDonald's was a nationwide sensation. The Golden Arches are rising in every major city. But Kroc isn't satisfied. He stares at a contract on his desk. It's time. That evening, he dials a number. Richard McDonald picks up. "Ray," Richard says cautiously. "What's this about?" Kroc clears his throat. "I want to buy McDonald's. All of it." Silence. Then Richard laughs. "You can't afford it." But Kroc isn't laughing. Chicago, 1961. The city is wrapped in a cold fog, the kind that creeps into your bones. Inside a dimly lit office, Ray Kroc sits at his desk, staring at the phone in his hand. His fingers tap impatiently against the wood, his heartbeat steady but forceful. He's just made the call. The call that will change everything. On the other end of the line, Richard McDonald lets out a soft chuckle. "You can't afford it, Ray." Kroc grips the receiver tighter. "You don't get it, Richard," he says, his voice low. "I don't need to afford it. I just need to want it more than you." Silence. The air between them is thick, loaded with unspoken tension. The McDonald brothers built this empire, but Kroc has hunger. And hunger is always stronger than comfort. Just months earlier, Kroc had begun tightening his grip on McDonald's. He wasn't just opening stores anymore, he was buying the land beneath them, using Harry Sonneborn's strategy. Franchise owners weren't paying rent to the McDonald brothers, they were paying him. Slowly, without them realizing, Kroc was turning McDonald's into his own empire. But there was one problem. The McDonald name still wasn't his. Every decision still needed Richard and Maurice's approval. And every time Kroc tried to expand, he found himself shut down by the very man who created the company. "The McDonald's name is ours, Ray," Maurice had told him over a tense meeting. "We appreciate what you've done, but this is our family business." Kroc had smiled then. A forced, polite smile. But inside, rage burned. If they wouldn't give him McDonald's, he would take it. Back in his office, Kroc leans forward, pressing the phone closer to his ear. "What do you want?" he asks, his voice carefully controlled. Richard exhales, clearly weighing his words. "We're willing to sell, Ray. But not cheap." Kroc glances at the contract in front of him. His legal team had warned him this was war. The brothers want $2.7 million. Enough for them to retire comfortably. Kroc knows it's overpriced. But he also knows something more important. This is his chance. "Done," he says without hesitation. Richard and Maurice are caught off guard. "You're serious?" Maurice asks, voice wary. Kroc smiles. "Serious enough to write the check today." It's a lie. He doesn't have that kind of money yet. But he will. The contract is drawn up. Lawyers shake hands. The McDonald brothers sign away their legacy, and Kroc, for the first time, owns everything. Well, almost everything. Before signing, Richard makes one last demand. "We keep our original McDonald's restaurant here in San Bernardino," he says. "It's not part of the franchise. It's ours." Kroc stares at him, expression unreadable. Then he nods. Of course. A handshake seals the deal. But as the McDonald brothers celebrate their newfound wealth, they don't notice the small clause buried in the contract. The one that gives Kroc the final say on the brand. The one that will allow him to wipe them off the map. Weeks later, Richard and Maurice receive an unexpected letter. It's from Ray Kroc. And it's not good news. Kroc has invoked a non-compete clause. Their original McDonald's restaurant? It can't use the name anymore. Richard reads the letter in stunned silence. Maurice clenches his fists. "No," he mutters. "He can't do this." But he can. And he did. Kroc had agreed they could keep their restaurant. He just never agreed they could keep the McDonald's name. Days later, the Golden Arches came down from the San Bernardino location. The McDonald brothers, the very men who created the company, watch as their name is stripped from the building. Their restaurant, once the original McDonald's, is now nothing more than a nameless burger joint. They had sold their empire. And Ray Kroc had erased them from it. By the time the ink dries on the contract, Ray Kroc is in full control. And he makes sure the world knows one thing. McDonald's was his idea. He rewrites history, branding himself as the sole visionary behind the Golden Arches. Interviews paint him as the genius who created fast food. The McDonald brothers fade into obscurity. And the man who once sold milkshake machines, he now controls the biggest restaurant chain on earth. But there's one last move he makes, one final, merciless act. In 1965, Kroc opened a brand new McDonald's in San Bernardino. Just a few blocks away from the McDonald brothers' original store. And within months, their nameless restaurant goes out of business. The last piece of their legacy is gone. And Ray Kroc has won. Years later, Ray Kroc sits in his lavish Chicago office. He's now a billionaire. His company is spread across the globe. A reporter interviews him, asking about the McDonald brothers. His response is chilling. "I don't know what they're doing now," he says with a smirk. "I suppose they're sitting somewhere, drinking themselves into oblivion." He chuckles. "They had the better idea. But I had better business." 1971, the McDonald brothers' home, Riverside, California. Maurice McDonald grips the edge of his armchair, his knuckles turning white. His face is flushed, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. His breathing is heavy, too heavy. Richard rushes to his side. "Maurice?" His voice is tight with panic. "Maurice, stay with me." But Maurice can't respond. His heart gives out. His body slumps forward. Richard grabs the phone, his hands shaking as he dials for help. But deep down, he already knows, his brother is gone. Maurice McDonald, one of the true founders of McDonald's, dies of heart failure. Some say it was natural. Others? They say it was the weight of what had happened. The betrayal. The loss. The erasure of their legacy. And the man who took everything from them? Ray Kroc is too busy expanding his empire to notice. By the 1970s, McDonald's is more than just a fast food chain. It's an empire. Kroc's aggressive expansion strategy turns the Golden Arches into a global symbol. New York, London, Tokyo, McDonald's spreads like wildfire. By 1979, there are over 5,000 locations worldwide. And Kroc isn't just selling burgers. He's selling a dream. The Big Mac. The Happy Meal. The idea that McDonald's isn't just food, it's family, childhood, happiness. But behind the golden glow of success, there's a darker truth. McDonald's workers move with robotic precision, flipping burgers, assembling fries, repeating the same motions thousands of times a day. Most are underpaid teenagers. Their hands blister from the heat of the grill. Their legs ache from standing for hours. And behind the smiling clown of Ronald McDonald, there's a ruthless corporate machine. Competitors crushed. Farmers squeezed for every penny. Millions spent on advertising to hook children before they can even read. And at the top of it all, sitting in his penthouse office, is Ray Kroc. Watching. Expanding. Winning. 1984, Kroc is in a wheelchair now. His body is failing him, but his mind? Still sharp. One day, a nurse turns on the television. An interview is playing. Richard McDonald is speaking. "We were the founders," Richard says, his voice heavy. But Ray Kroc makes sure no one remembers that. Kroc's face hardens. He spent his life erasing the McDonald brothers, and yet, here was Richard, still speaking. A slow rage builds inside him. His grip on the wheelchair tightens. Then, his own body betrays him. Kroc suffers a massive stroke. He is rushed to the hospital, barely conscious. The doctors do their best, but the powerful, ruthless, unstoppable Ray Kroc? He never fully recovers. January 14th, 1984. Ray Kroc takes his last breath in a hospital bed. McDonald's is bigger than ever. The man who built an empire from nothing, who lied, manipulated, and crushed anyone in his way, is gone. But there's no peace in his death. Even at the end, he never apologized. Never acknowledged what he did to the McDonald brothers. He won. But he also lost something he could never get back. His legacy is complicated. Is he a visionary? Or a villain? Decades after Kroc's death, McDonald's still dominates. Over 40,000 locations worldwide. A brand worth billions. A symbol of America itself. But the truth? Behind every Happy Meal, every golden fry, every smiling Ronald McDonald, there's a story of betrayal, ambition, and power. McDonald's didn't just sell fast food. It sold a dream. A dream that Ray Kroc stole and made his own.